Welcome to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard W. Munchkin. Bob Dancer is America's premier video poker writer and teacher. He's in the Video Poker Hall of Fame, and he's written 10 books about video poker, including Video Poker for the Intelligent Beginner and the best-selling $1 Million Video Poker. He helped develop the Video Poker for Winners computer software. Richard W. Munchkin has played blackjack, backgammon, and poker professionally and is in the Blackjack Hall of Fame. His book, Gambling Wizards, Conversations with the World's Greatest Gamblers, is a testament to the many ways you can succeed at gambling. The goal of the show is that by listening, you'll be a more knowledgeable gambler tomorrow than you were yesterday. And now, here are Bob and Richard.
Good evening. Welcome to Gambling with an Edge. I'm Bob Dancer in studio, and Richard Munchkin's here this week. Hello, Richard.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Sometimes he calls in from California, but he drove in because also in our studio is super host Steve Cyr. Hello, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to introduce Steve properly pretty soon, but improperly he's going to sit in here, and in the meantime, if we have any questions that he wants to jump in, he will, as if we could stop him.
Yeah, big mistake giving me an open mic. Yeah.
All right, good. All right. So, first off, there's a lot in the news this week about Full Tilt Poker. Full Tilt was clobbered by the Justice Department last April 15th, and this week the Justice Department says that the site isn't a poker site at all, but rather a Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme is where the money is distributed from new deposits rather than from the profits of the operation. Famous players Chris Ferguson and Howard Lederer were specifically named. There are other very famous Full Tilt poker players who are not named, at least not yet. My reaction is, Howard, please say this isn't so. I hope it isn't. These are some of the poker heroes. Richard, what's your take on all this?
You know, it's really hard to know what the truth is and what is just rumor and people's conjecture. In the beginning, their charter, the players' money was supposed to be kept separately from the company's money. So they get their money from the rake on each hand. And those should always have been kept separately. So at some point, a year or two ago, those monies started to get commingled. And in addition to that, money was being paid out to the partners.
Sizable money.
Sizable money, yeah, sizable money. So
it's in the tens and millions of dollars.
Correct. So calling it a Ponzi scheme, I don't know if that's really the right term, but clearly there was not the right thing going on there. Interestingly, the Epic Poker League has
Annie Duke.
Annie Duke is the commissioner, and she is Howard Lederer's sister.
And they're close. They're not. They're
yeah,
close.
Yeah, and both Howard and Chris had their cards suspended by the Epic Poker League, so that had to be quite a call for her to make. The Epic Poker League seems to have been plagued with lots of problems here at the start.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of other people who qualify for Epic Poker who are Full Tilt Poker people, like Andy Block or Phil Ivey or Mattisau or Jennifer Harmon. There's a list of very famous players there.
Yeah, but they haven't been indicted.
They have not been indicted. That kind of makes it different. All right. Actually, they're innocent until proven guilty. I'm actually, though, if it had done under the last administration, where they have the religious right being against the gambling on moral reasons, I would think there would be more likely that this was a bogus claim. But the fact that it happened under an administration where the religious right doesn't have a big claim to it, I would think it's more likely to be some substance.
I actually think that this is about paving the way for the big casino corporations, MGM Mirage and Harrah's, to enter this market, to clear out the competition now. One of the bills that is before Congress would make it mandatory that the new regulated internet poker would have to be attached to a land-based casino.
Yeah, I can see why Harrah's or MGM would want that to be the law.
Sure. So I actually think that that's a big part of why this stuff is going on, is to sort of clear these people out and make way for legalized internet poker that'll be regulated, which brings us to the AGA.
Well, the AGA, is the American Gaming Association, is led by Frank Fahrenkopf, who was former
head of the Republican
chairman
Party.
of the Republican Party. So
Yeah.
a lot of national political clout and experience. He's been in Washington for a large number of years. And recently, in this past week, they came out with a proposal that they're in favor of Americans being involved in internet gambling under regulated circumstances, which include such things as at least 21, felons can't do it, you only can have one computer on at a time in a household. I don't know what all the rules are.
Sure. Well,
But-
they've really jumped on this as a way to capitalize. I mean, this is a lobbying organization, and they have a lot of money behind them. The MGM, Mirage, Harrah's, they're all behind them with putting a lot of money into it. And this was a perfect thing for them to capitalize on and say, see, this is why we need to be doing it, so that, because we're trustworthy and those guys are not.
Well, timing-wise, the AGA announcement came out first, and then the indictments came out, and then AGA said, yeah, this is why we're doing this. So I don't know if behind the scenes AGA knew this was coming down. Wouldn't surprise me, but I have no specific knowledge of that as to that's the way politics
I'm betting
go.
they did.
You're betting they knew that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that'd be good, but you can't bet online these days.
Yeah.
So the guy who's speaking up, his name's Steve Cyr. So, Richard, why don't you tell us about Steve?
Well, Steve Cyr bills himself as a super host. He is the subject of the book Whale Hunt in the Deserts, Secrets of a Vegas Super Host. He has a company called ISC Consulting, and they pair players with casinos around the world. So, Steve, welcome to Gambling with an Edge.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we could talk all day about that previous subject. It's very interesting to me, and I hope that at least Nevada jumps on board and gets online gaming. We need it, We need everything. I'm so happy that the NFL is alive and well. I was shaking in my boots when we thought we might not have a season. I hope the NBA gets their head out of their butt and
Boy, me too.
gets them.
Why would Nevada need online gaming? Nevada is the leader in bricks and mortar casinos. Why would they need online gaming? Steve?
Well, as we had discussed earlier, 20 years ago, we were really ahead of the curve. And like I said, when I came to Las Vegas, I remember my mother saying, I hope you like Las Vegas, because the only other place you could work in a casino is Atlantic City. And, of course, now I represent casinos in Florida and California. I do a ton of work in Texas and even Kansas. And so I just always like that we're ahead of the curve. You can play blackjack so many places now, and that's why 20 years ago, 85% of all the casino revenue was from the casino, and now it's not. It's a third entertainment, it's a third rooms, and it's a third gambling. So anything for our state, from prostitution, as we talked earlier, to gaming, I just think we should be first on board. We do it the best. I hope we get a sports team here, and I hope you can go to an NBA game at Thomas and Mack or wherever our new arena is and bet the game. That's what would be cool. I hate when people say, oh, if we finally get an NBA team, don't let them gamble on the team. I love being able, and my players that don't even like the Rebels, they like to come, bet the game, and then go to the game. That's what makes it cool. It makes us unique.
Sure. So what casinos do you represent?
Okay. My business model is I'm pretty much one-stop shopping for the gambler. And so if you're in New York and you're freezing your tail off, I can put you on Norwegian Cruise Line. I work for NCL Cruise Lines. I can fly you down to the Bahamas. I've been repping them since 1999 at the Atlantis. Beautiful property. If you're in Vegas and you want to get wild, we can stay at the Hard Rock or the new hip Cosmo. If you're a little bit more mellow, and the wife would think that's too risque, I'll take you down to the Golden Nugget downtown or Red Rock Casino. And if you want to take the kids to SeaWorld, I work for the Barona in San Diego. So if you want to golf, it's a little bit more mellow. That's where our friend Max is up. And
Max Rubin has been on the show.
yeah, great
Do
guy.
you have any contacts in Macau?
I don't, but you know what? I'm starting to get so many requests. I'm going to have to do that. And I've been contacted by a couple of casinos down there to go down. And I have a good buddy at the Wynn organization that I think is going to take me down because they're just exploding there. Reps there have to guarantee the money. I don't here. It depends on the jurisdiction. In Nevada, I get a percentage, 16% of the theoretical loss. In other jurisdictions, it's easy. I get 10 to 12% of loss.
Of actual loss.
Correct.
Not
So in
theoretical
Nevada, I want you to win, baby, because if you win, two things happen for sure. You guys know. You're the experts. If you win, you bet more, you play longer, hence higher theoretical for me. I hope you kick their ass. Okay?
But what if they're playing a game like Blackjack or video poker, which is the skilled players can win? Now, if these players win, they're not quite as welcome by the casinos.
Absolutely.
But
the wise guys, we call them.
How does that affect you?
Well, it affects me a lot. I mean, you know, I've been doing this so long, I can pretty smell them out. You know, if I call a guy, I cold call a lot of big gamblers, or they call me because I've gotten lucky and some notoriety in the last few years. If a guy calls me and he says, "Oh, I want to take my wife to the UFC fights and I want to go see Celine Dion, and can you get us into the club and the pool?" I'm happy. When a guy calls and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Okay, I need double deck. I want to be able to split aces 4 times. Can I double down after a split? How much in promos am I getting?" Yeah, where are they putting the sweat card? I call it cut card. I call it sweat card. And then I know, okay, here we go. Okay, now, as long as he's not known by everybody, and I pretty much have my own little black book of guys that you just can't beat, you know, I'll stay away from him. Like, dude, it's not. I mean, look, I'm Larry Flint's host, okay? It's not a secret. I give Larry a great deal, but Larry comes from the shoulder. His first bet's the max. He plays excellent strategy. He doesn't make any mistake. He doesn't get drunk on the tables. If we go to dinner, I had him at the Cosmo 2 weeks ago. We started drinking wine. He doesn't gamble. Very disciplined gambler, has his own golf stream. He's up $1 million. He's not staying until Sunday and pissing it away. He's going home, okay? So, I mean, but he plays perfect. He doesn't make any mistakes, and, man, I've seen him win millions before, but he fires it out there. He's a bear player. Either we get him or he gets you. You know what I mean? So, you know, when a guy's really – I mean, you can just tell they stick out to me.
Well, Larry
really
Flint does stick out.
Yeah. But I mean, and then a guy's worried about his comps and that. I like a guy that it's the cost of entertainment. My goal is that a guy loses $100,000, shakes my hand and says, "God, I had a great time," wins the next event. You know, it's the cost of entertainment. Some people want to go on a cruise or go around the world. Some people would rather risk $20,000, and I take him to watch the Floyd Mayweather fight last week, you know?
Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between a superhost, or what can a superhost do for me?
God, he loves that title. You know, Deke wrote that on there. I don't know. There's no S on my chest.
Yeah, do you change in a phone booth? Or?
Well, at my level, I'm like a Jerry Maguire. I tell big customers you wouldn't go into divorce court without a good attorney. Okay, I mean, let's take Larry, for example. I really negotiate everything on his behalf, and I represent him, but I also represent the casino. I'm not a salaried employee. Okay, so I'm on Larry's side. I'm trying to get Liz a $5,000 shopping spree every time she comes in. Okay, I'm trying to get him an extra 90 days to pay if he loses. And you'd asked a question before, on $1 million, yeah, it's not a secret. We can discount up to 20%. We call 5% airfare, 15% discount. And if you pay me quick, I might even give you an additional 2%. The way things are going. So you lose $100. Look, in the old days, you lost $100,000. I paid your airfare of $480, and you flew back to L.A. Now it's really tough on the casinos. In fairness to them, a guy who loses $100,000, I got to discount him at least 10%. So now that's 90. Give him another 5% in airfare. So now he's only paid me 85. Oh, and guess what? You owe me another 5. So you finally beat a guy out of 100. After comps, you made 65, 70,000 profit. What about the guy that bought in for $2,000 and won $100,000? I mean, you know, people don't realize at the end of the year, if we hold 14%, we had a hell of a year.
Are you trying to make us feel bad for casinos? Those poor guys.
Hey, you guys, I'm more on your side than theirs. Come on, I'm on commission, baby. I want to educate them. I had a player the other day, and I pulled him aside and like, "Listen, I'm trying to be your friend here, okay? If you quit, I mean, he'd have 16, the dealer would have a 6, and he wanted to hit it. I'm like, there's more 10s. Just think simple. There's more 10s in there than anything else, buddy. You're good." And I was just trying to educate him. You're good, you know. And then he'd lose 5 hands in a row and just push out the stat. I mean, just played terrible. But he's a chaser. But he had a few times where he won, and he's got the fever now, and he thinks he can beat the game. No way, this guy's going to be busted in a year. I mean, I can just tell. Some people you can't help.
Yeah.
Okay, they think, and then you get the guy. You know, I love it when a new player says, "Yeah, I've got a little system in roulette." I'm like, well, bring it on, because that theoretical's so high, you know. So.
But I mean, the casinos do throw out guys just for winning. I
call them bleeders or sweaters, and I've definitely worked with some. There's a lot of people that are in the Griffin book or whatever it's called, or the Black book, and they're not wise guys. I know one guy that is always blind drunk, and a former property that I represented 86 to him. I'm like, why? Because he won each. You're never going to get your money back then. Larry Flint won 17 trips in a row at the Las Vegas Hilton. There's a story in my book about it. He was up almost $6 million. And Dean Harold, our president then, wanted to, we can't handle him, Steve, stop. His first bet is 3 hands at 15. He's got no place to go, Dean. He's at the max. 2 years later, he'd lost all that back and another $7 million. I mean,
do you think the casino executives are not as educated about the game itself as they used to be?
You know, that's a tough question. I think for players, and I've been a host 25 years now, players are definitely more educated because of the internet, and boy, they know what to ask for, and they've gotten spoiled. I think there's a lot of casino executives that are almost too educated. I hate to say this, but they're almost too smart. They just look at it, and I've actually had an argument with one vice president, and, you know, I've been fired 9 times for a reason. I told him to finally, you know what, off. And I had a guy come in and in like 20 minutes blow 50 grand. But his theoretical was only about 2,000, and they didn't want to comp him everything. I'm like, you guys, this is what I tell players. You either get your ass kicked, you either lose, or you give me some time. If you come in the first day and win a quick 20 grand, God bless you, I'm not comping everything. If you play 4 hours a day, God bless you, I don't care if you won $1 million, I'm comping everything. This guy came in, the poor guy, went to a show, came out and was snapped for 50 grand like that. Okay? You're not going to comp everything? No, Steve, because his theoretical isn't there, and if we do that over time, we will lose. Now, that's a guy that's a brainiac, that's an idiot to me, and I told him that, and I told him to F off, and I got fired, and I have no regrets on that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on. Go tell that guy that just pissed away 50 grand that you can't comp a room that just costs a maid to clean it? Are you kidding me, right?
Yeah.
He didn't give us enough time. Would you rather that he played 80 hours, had a hell of a theoretical? I get paid in Nevada, too. I can get online. It's called a quick loss. If a customer loses 80% of his credit line or more in under 3 hours, I get a quick loss. So if a guy blows 100 grand in 2 hours, I get 5% or $5 grand. I'd wish he'd win 100, because then instead of coming back in 3 months, he comes back in 3 weeks. But yeah, so a lot of executives, they're bean counters, the CFOs, I can't stand them. They get on my nerves because they've never been in the trenches. You know, go take 5,000 out of your savings account and light it on fire. That's what a lot of people do. They want a little food, just give it to them.
Yeah.
I miss the old Vegas. I'm more old school.
You mentioned you think prostitution should be legal here. Currently, it's illegal, but certainly some of your guests sometimes are going to ask you to set them up with some companionship.
More than sometimes.
All right. What do you do here?
Well, first of all, it's legal in Nye County. So,
Yep.
you know, we send that's per ump, and we send a lot of business to Nye County. They'll pick up customers for free. You can go to places like Sherry's Ranch that has affiliates there and have a cocktail, and the limo picks you up and go out to the brothel there that's legal. So that's one way, and that's a lot of way. A lot of two, I just tell people, let your fingers do the walking. You can pick up the Yellow Pages or anything. There's a lot of escort services online, and I think.
But you can't comp that.
No, and I've never comped that. Yeah,
but if you send them out to the legal ranch, can you comp that?
No, but
why not?
But look at this: $100,000 player comes in. I can give him $5,000 in airfare cash. He can take his girlfriend shopping. He can go to the Bunny Ranch. That's his money. He can do whatever he wants. You can look at it any way you want. He earned the airfare. This is his cash. We have flash cash still.
Even if he only spent $300 on airfare, he's getting the $5,000.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes I hang them with give me your airfare, and sometimes I'll just give them the 5%. You know, it's just a way around it.
So,
but let me tell you one misnomer. I mean, because for the audience, they wrote me some really funny questions, and I told them it wouldn't matter to Bob and Richard if I was at NYU speaking or Cornell where my book's required reading. It's always the same questions. So it's really funny. You know, you asked the question here about what happens if a guy's a drug kingpin. I'm telling you, I've been a host since I was 22. I'm 47, 25 years. I'm not kidding you guys. I can count on one hand guys that were really like drug lords. Okay, if a guy's a big druggie and doing ecstasy, he wants to go to the club all night. He wants to he's fried. My guys are addicted to the games. Yes, they love booze. They like chasing skirts, but they're more gamblers. I don't have big druggy guys. I don't know if the movies created that or what. My guys are addicted to the game.
Well, that wasn't the gist of the question. The question is if the guy got his money for selling drugs or been an arms dealer or something. So he was
he brought in 30,000 in 20s.
Yeah, right.
And that happens.
Sometimes something that the money may be illegal somehow.
Okay, two things. Since I've been a host, a lot of rules have changed. In the 80s, we had what's called Regulation
6A.
6A, and anybody, if you put up 10,000 in 10s and 20s, I have to give you back the exact amount of 10s and 20s. Okay, so there's no money laundering. We also have what's called a suspicious activity report, which I have filled out a few if I think a guy is just completely high and out of his mind. One guy put up like 180,000, had kite string around. I mean, it smelled. I mean, I was like, where the hell is this money from? And I called gaming, okay, because I'm not getting in trouble on this one. But to answer your question, look, if you've got a driver's license and you put up the money, and I do all my reports, and I do my currency transaction reports, just like if you go buy a car and you spend $20,000 cash, that doesn't mean you're a drug dealer, but they've got to do an IRS CTR. I do all that paperwork. I really do not give a crap what you do, and no, I'm not going to do research and see if, you know, Bob Dancer is a good legal guy or that, okay? He's not being abusive to my staff. He put up a credit card for his room. I copied his ID. Go win some money, buddy. I do not care. Okay, if you put up over 10,000, of course we're going to do the currency and transaction report. We're not going to jeopardize our license, but I have some big players, and I have no clue how they come every month with 50,000 in cash.
So,
and it's not, as long as they're cool and I have everything. They have a no. Look, Michael Jordan once came over to.
Well, we
Hilton.
have a clue where he gets.
No. But my point is he had a $50,000 credit line that was approved. His driver's license was expired. I go, Mike, I love you. You can't. I made him get in the limo. He's really pissed. Go back over to Wynn, get his driver's license, come back. Boom. He had two for some reason, or he had his passport. His driver's license was expired. I made him go back, get his passport, at that time from his wife, and bring it back. I'm telling you, we're pretty good at that. Because gaming loves to try to, trip us up. So
yeah.
No. So we're not going to bend any rules, but to answer your question, because you asked a couple times, do you really research what they do? No.
Well, this is a different question. I mean,
Okay.
if a guy shows up that you've never heard of before with
Right.
$1 million, right, a cashier's check, $1 million, I would think you would say somebody's got to know this player.
Well, okay. Two things. One, we do have a check and balance system called Central Credit that I talk about in the book. It's kind of like I call it the TRW of gaming. It doesn't affect your TRW, but it shows where you've paid and played credit-wise. I've had twice in
So let's say the guy's at Ghost.
Okay. I had twice in my career, I got a call one day. Actually, I got an email for this customer to call me. I'm a $1 million player. Can you call me? I get that all the time. Usually it's just they want a comp, and it's BS. But I try to call everybody back. I called him. He goes, I'm at the Palms. I read your book. I just lost about $1 million here. Can you help me negotiate a discount? Because they're telling me they don't do that for American players. And I go, okay. And I told him exactly what to do. I got him his discount, and then he played for it. He was a ghost. He came out of nowhere. And I did do some research, and we did what's called an asset search, which we can do, and we had him when he filled out his credit line. And he had just turned 35, and we turned 35. He got a big inheritance of about $40 million, and he decided to go to Vegas with it. So that was kind of a cool story. And I've had a couple people where they were really rich really quick, and a couple years later they were going to San Quentin.
Mm.
So that's happened
So they
too.
do research.
Yeah.
They do look into who
they do
this
look,
guy is.
And look, if you said $1 million player's name, not to like brag, but any top executive, I probably know the name or he's in my notes. And I don't have thousands of players. I have 70 guys right now that will risk 100,000 to $250,000. That's what I call a high roller in a weekend. And I have 14 guys that'll risk $1 million to $5 million. And believe me, that makes me Michael Jordan. And then I have a couple hundred guys that'll blow 10 to 20 grand. And as their age and wealth increases, their betting will increase. My biggest player now that brings $5 million, he brought $5 million over the Mayweather fight. When I met him 22 years ago, he's my age, he brought 25 grand. Now that's his average bet. So as his age has increased, his gaming has increased. He's very disciplined, a very wealthy family, and it's pretty cool.
When you're setting up a deal for a player, does it matter whether that player has a line of credit or is going to bring front money, or can you get a better deal if he has a line of credit?
Yes.
How does that work?
Two things. The great thing about a line of credit is that then I get them to play with me. If a guy brings 20 grand cash to town, he might end up at a strip club or a bar or shopping or whatever. I stopped at Shell gas station on the way here because I have a Shell credit card. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then, as long as I know, I call it his exposure. Say if 20 grand, I know what I can comp him up front. I don't know what say Bob's gambling, what he has in his pocket. Yeah, maybe his average bet was 500, but he was winning. Well, when I'm winning, I bet a lot too. So I like to know and Central Credit shows me a pay and play pattern. There's a lot of guys that they have low 7 in the bank, they want $1 million credit line, but on their Central Credit, the most they've ever owed a casino is 10 grand or 15 grand. My dad could have $1 million credit, but let me tell you, if my dad lost 5 grand, he wouldn't gamble again for 5 years. You know what I mean? Then you have the opposite, the guy that wants a $100,000 line, but he keeps $1 grand in his bank account. Dude, that marker's a check. If you go bad, I have to run it through. It's a felony in my state. I can pick you up. But the judge is going to side for you if we have to go to trial, and I've testified 30 times. I've got to have an account that has 5 figures in it or 6 figures in it because a marker's a check. So I usually get these decisions like it's 2 in the morning. We want to try and come see the new Cosmo. I want 50,000 credit. I have to run the Central. I have to look at it. I become the sumo expert on. I can look at a Central, read it. Where does he play? What's in his bank? And know if I can get the guy or not. Maybe I'll match him. I love those kind of deals. Put up 20, Bob, I'll give you 20. Richard, put up 10, I'll give you 10. And I'll give you 60 days to pay if I happen to snap you. You know, maybe owe another property. I'll tell you what, if you win, you can pay half of that off, take it home. I love the whole deal making, and the casinos trust me at my level to make the deal.
I would love to have that deal. I'll put up 100,000. You give me 100.
And then you're going to go play blackjack or video poker, probably single deck. Right?
There's this. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this guy Don Johnson who won the $15 million.
Yes, I
right?
know. I know, Mr. J.
And there's been a lot of talk in the advantage player community that he was getting a 20% loss rebate. Now, people seem to think that's over, that can't happen anymore because this guy won all this money. But what you're saying is that this is still possible to get a 20% loss rebate.
Yeah, you put up $1 million. You can get 20% back if you pay within 30 or 60 days. Now, on Don Johnson...
if you're putting up the money, you're paying immediately.
Or credit, yeah. Or credit.
Uh-huh.
But on Don... I can't speak for the casinos that he crushed in Atlantic City, but what I would do, and I'm guessing they're due, if he came in last trip and won $3 million, say this trip he comes in and loses $3 million, they're not going to give him a discount because they're even. On a guy like that, you got to net him out once a year, every quarter. I have a lot of big local players, and I net them out every 60 days. I have one video poker player in particular, and he plays a triple double-double. Okay, so he's playing a game that we like, but... we have to net him out because he'll hit 100 grand all the time. Aces, even 4 of a kind is 62.50. He plays $25 video poker.
$25 single line.
Exactly, plays 62.50. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
For the low ones, but
right.
if it's twos, threes, or fours, or aces, it's more.
Aces with a kicker is 100 grand.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so what we have to do with him, because we give him 10% on 150,000 or more loss, he might have a week where he loses 150, but the next week he wins 250. So what we do about every 60 days, we go, okay, Mr. D, we net you out. You lost 330,000. We're going to take this much off because he plays so much.
Right.
Well, if he were smart, if he had a big losing trip, he'd stay away for 2 months.
Well,
let you net him out and then come back again.
As a rep, and I work on commission, that's what I use as my leverage. I'll say, listen, you snapped him, so now I guess just pretend he lives in New York because he's not coming back for a while. Let's give him a discount and get him back in action. And I don't get paid till they pay. That was one of your questions too. So I'm also the collector. So I don't get paid until after he pays.
So he owes 300,000. So
you show up at his door.
How do you did you send Tony? I mean, what happened?
No.
What
happens we don't have to send Guido anymore and break your legs. We put liens on your assets, and if the marker bounces, it's a felony. And then the good old district attorney adds 10%. And I just had a guy that owed $4,000. He's such an idiot. He owed it for about 7 months to a property I work for, and they were really cool with him. I'm like, dude, send me $500 a month. We can work. Who cares? Nope. No, I'm not going to pay. Okay. He was in Mexico with his kids coming back. They scanned his passport, bench worn out, and stayed in Nevada. He had $5 grand on him. The kids got to go to Child Protective Custody. He sat on a bus for 6 days trying to get to Clark County, Nevada. Then he hit a weekend. Then 3 days later, he got in front of a judge. Paid $4,400. They let him go, over $4 grand. This state takes it very seriously. In California, they can drag you your TRW, but they can't do anything criminally. There's a famous story of a guy that stiffed Max in the Verona for millions of dollars, and he figured out that in California legally they couldn't do it. There's no criminal action in California. In Nevada there is. They will pick you up, and I've got a lot of guys that have stayed in jail over just a few grand.
And it gets listed in Central Credit.
Correct.
If and when this happens.
Correct.
So that if if I'm going to want a line of credit later and I've done this, then I have to
You
change
are a
the
write-off. It'll be big red ink, and nobody will give it to you. We all work together in that regard, where once you stiff one casino, it's going to be real rare unless you have a personal relationship or it was a beef. A guy gets in a beef over airfare, forget you, and never pays him that $5 or $10 grand on $100 grand. Then I've given a guy credit. But yeah, once you stiff somebody, you're done.
So, as long as you're leaving, if you're leaving,
so if you're
then you
stiff them for millions.
Yeah, if you're going to go BK for a big number, baby.
and do it in California. It's like
that's exactly right.
And don't have any assets.
Right. Don't have any assets.
And in California, I get paid on loss only. So if you lose in stiff, I get zero. And if a guy wins, I get zero. We had it's a long the story in the book. I had a big player, and he was with John Elway. Okay, John Elway's betting like $2,000 a hand. I have him for the Super Bowl at the Brona when the Raiders were in the Super Bowl. It was like an 04. They lost the game. Yeah.
They got clobbered by Tampa Bay.
This guy's betting like $50,000 a hand, and he's down $1,950,000. He's got $50,000 left in front of him. And I look at my wife at the time, Tanya, and I'm like, he loses this hand, we make $200,000, babe. We're going to sell the house here. We're going to move to Queens Ridge because we're looking at this house that we liked. He put out 25 grand. 11 came, doubled down, hits the snapper. I couldn't believe it. Ran it all the way back and left with like $1.6 million. I literally threw up in the trash can in the back. I'd already spent the money, and I had to act happy for him. It's unbelievable.
Every gambler has ended up losing money that they've already spent because they figured out they have win.
There was a
Very
quote
good.
of yours that I really liked, which is "Stars are stiffs."
Stars are stiffs. That's true, 100%. I mean, look. Paris Hilton, wonderful. She gets 6 figures to come to a club night. Like that's not what I do. Stars are stiffs, and they're really a pain in my butt. Okay, Ben Affleck. No, why do we comp him? Not because he's Ben Affleck, because he'll risk $100,000 at the tables and he fires it up. Same thing with Michael Jordan. MJ will sit there and say what you want. He'll risk a couple $100,000. Okay, so it's worth it. But most stars are like, hey, I mean, rest his soul, Telly Savalas, what a pain. God, he always wanted the sweet comped and everything, and somebody comped it once.
The lollipops too?
The lollipop, yeah, exactly. And then, he'd lose $2 grand and want, he'd have 15,000 in comps and Cristal. And yeah, to me, and what I do, to me, the star is the construction worker with 5 or 10 grand that wants to fire it up. That's my star. The guy from Hollywood, complete stiff. He doesn't take care of the staff. He doesn't take care of gambling, but he expects everything calm. So that's why I said that. Stars are stiff.
I remember a famous story about a guy who, before he was a big Hollywood star, was a bartender and was stiffing the cocktail waitresses and the bartenders at the Mirage, and I just found it amazing that a guy who used to be a bartender would not tip the cocktail waitress and the bartender.
Who was it?
I shouldn't say that.
Come on.
But don't say, but was he married to Demi Moore at one time?
And I did hear that he may have gotten some bodily fluids in his cocktails.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Especially if you're a bartender, you're right. He should know.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you and say, I think I want this guy to represent me, are you full up, or do you got room to talk to somebody? How do they do it?
I always have room. I try just to work with customers that will post or have credit line of at least 25,000. It's just I'm one guy. I have a small staff, so and the easiest is stevecyr.com, stevecyr.com. You can email me there. I have 2 assistants, and all they do is kind of funnel traffic. And if I don't represent a casino, I probably know a rep that does, and I can try to get you a good deal there. Remember, I work for you, the player. And I kind of know everybody in town, so if you want tickets or you want to go to a show or you need to go to Garth Brooks or something, I can get you in.
So let me ask you this. You said you don't handle Macau, but I know that there are a lot of cash, non-negotiable chip deals where you get discounts up front, buying with front money, things like that. Can Caucasians get those deals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm starting to learn a lot more about that, and I've met some reps that just handle that. It's amazing, and they're making a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable. Didn't they say 85% of the Venetians' money is now from Macau and Singapore? Is that correct or something like that?
Some such number, but...
Now, also, you had said that you can arrange to play tennis with Agassi or
I've done
one-on-one with Michael Jordan.
There's a picture in my book. I've done that too. Yeah,
No, I'm sure
players.
you have.
Yeah.
But I mean,
no,
why
for my
would
players.
what's in it for them? Why, you know?
Well, look, everybody needs favors. You don't think Andre Agassi ever needed? Well, first of all, with Andre, it was easy because I worked for Tim Poster down at the Nugget, and they're very close. And Andre was even a small owner of the Nugget at one time. So that was kind of easy for that because Tim and Andre are buddies, and we had a big player. And so, yeah, everybody, look, what's cool about what I do is it doesn't matter who you are and how much money you have. You still can't go to lunch with Randy Couture. Well, you can if you're a gambler with Steve Cyr, because Randy and I are really good friends, and he'll come over and take you to lunch. And I've done that several times. How cool is that? UFC Hall of Famer
That's cool.
shows up and gives your teenager a little one-on-one grappling lesson. He does that for me all the time, and I take care of Randy. Think Randy ever needs? Randy doesn't have to gamble $1. He wants to go to Santana. No, we're going to go meet Santana, and here's a signed guitar. You know what I mean? So it's cool. So yeah, I like that old school style of Vegas. You know, you're a player, we take care of you. You know, you're the limo driver for the player. We take care of you. I still try to implement that and teach that. Again, that's when the bean counters get in the way. And, you know, look, if Larry Flint's bodyguard wants to come up for the weekend, I'm not going to let him pay for anything. That's the way it should be. Larry bets $45,000 a hand. Take care of his guy. Okay. Now, it's sad that I still have to argue that point sometimes. You know, but yeah, so yeah, that's why they do it.
So we're almost out of time. What is the
fast.
most interesting story that you can tell us about in the hosting business that you can tell on AM radio?
Oh, God, that really limits me. You mean interesting just on, like, what I had to do to get a guy maybe or something?
If you like.
Okay. I get the Forbes magazine every year where they have, like, the richest Americans and everything. And I like to just cold call out of that. And one guy was in the top 20, and he was at a dinner for the Jewish Man of the Year or whatever in New York, and I flew to New York, okay, and I weaseled my way in past the door, and I got in, I introduced myself to him, and he was very offended. I'd been calling him for about a year and a half, and he was going to kick me out, and then he didn't, and then he kind of blew me off for a while, and he was actually playing craps then at a casino in Atlantic City. I went in and bought in for a couple thousand. That's all the money I had. And I rolled for him, and he won about $500,000. The next day, we got on a private plane, flew to the Las Vegas Hilton, beat him out of $3 million. It's pretty cool.
Is he still your client
Yeah,
today?
yeah, we're buddies. We're buddies. And I was getting my shoe shine at the place at Caesars, and they have magazines there, Playboys, right? And they had a Forbes, richest Americans. I saw one, I kind of read it, and it said something about how he liked to take chances, and he liked going to the horse tracks, and I just smelled gambler. And then it said he was, you know, the Jewish Man of the Year or something. Like, what's Steve Cyr going to do there? But I got in, so that was pretty cool.
It is cool. It's a pleasure talking to you. These
Oh, you
great
guys are
stories.
great.
We're going to have him on again. We haven't picked out a date. We have 4 books, Whale Hunt
Well,
of
2
the
I
Dead.
signed you guys, so 2 for anybody.
Right.
And they're going to go to the 2 best email questions that we're going to ask him next time he's on. So send your email questions to gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Include your name and address, and the 2 best questions in the next 2 weeks or so. Richard and I will
Name and email address.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
And, I have plenty, so do 4. I'll bring
all right.
2 more. Yeah.
So the next ones that we're going to ask him on the air next time he's on, which is an indeterminate time at this point, but it's going to happen.
But he's been great, so it won't be
he's
that
got
long.
he's
No, I
got
like
too many
it, yeah.
stories. Very good.
All right,
So,
thank you guys.
thank you very much,
Thank you,
Steve. All right, that was good.
Yeah.
So
That was
what
fun.
did you learn, Richard?
Well, I learned that this is a big myth that you can't get loss rebates anymore. That
You just got to lose $1 million though,
well, you got to put up $1 million.
and you got to lose a significant amount.
Yeah. Rebate started $100,000. He's
Oh.
here selling. He's pitching still.
Oh well, good. So that's a much easier goal.
Yeah.
That's a much easier.
Somehow, I think, my question about investigating people, somehow I think if I showed up with $1 million front money, somehow I think they wouldn't want me to play, even if I told them I would only play craps or baccarat.
Somehow you think they would find you in the Griffin book somewhere.
Bean counters. What can you
Bean
do?
County. What can you do? All right, good. All right, let's talk about some of our sponsors. The South Point has more than 10,000 games, returning more than 99%. That's more than any other casino in the world. Now, in a week and a half, Sunday, October 2nd. Videopoker.com, who's also one of our sponsors, and the South Point are joining together to offer a video poker tournament. I'll be teaching a free class on how to do well in video poker tournaments starting at 10:30 October 2nd. Everybody's invited. You do have to become a member of videopoker.com, but that's going to be free if you want to do that. Greg Brown will be on the show next week, who's our friend from videopoker.com, and he'll tell us more about it. You're going to be playing triple play on double bonus on the tournament, and it costs $50 to enter. All the money's returned to the player. If you're a fast player, you have positive equity in this game. In a video poker tournament, speed counts. This coming Wednesday, the free video poker class at the South Point is going to be double bonus Deuces Wild. So this is a combination of normal Deuces Wild, except 4 or 5 aces gets paid a whole lot. 5, 3s, and 4s, and 5s gets paid somewhat less. So the strategy is different from regular Deuces Wild. Later in the semester, we're also going to be teaching bonus Deuces Wild and regular Deuces Wild in the NSU version. So each of these games are different. And if you come to several of these classes, you're going to learn that when the full house pays this much, you do this. When the when 2 pair pays this much, you do this, etc. So you're going to learn the differences. It's 1 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. Palms. They're continuing their Choose Your Destiny drawings, which is 5 players get to either get a guaranteed $1,500 or they get to gamble it up with a top prize of $3,210 or with an average prize of $1,667. Last weekend I was actually called in the drawing and chose to gamble it up, and if we have a little bit of time at the end of the show, I'll tell you how that went. The PEWs, Play, Earn, and Win, for the next 2 weeks are Italian food and wine possibilities. The top one to earn 35,000 coin in, if you're a video poker player, is a $100 certificate to Nove Restaurant. A Nove Restaurant is their Italian restaurant that has been award winning. There's also other things on the there's pizza gift certificates you can earn. There's Italian liqueurs information. Italian liqueurs you can win, and so those are part of the PEW. As a player, the PEWs this week are, for many people, may not be as attractive as they were last week, which means there'll be fewer people gambling and being in the Choose Your Destiny drawing. So in the Choose Your Destiny drawing this week and next weekend is likely to be a better bet in terms of the number of entries in the barrel. At the M, which promotion is going on depends on which day of the week it is. Mondays, they have a mystery multiplier. Your video poker can be 1, 2, or 3x. Your slot can go up to 10. Wednesdays is a low roller event where you earn 1 entry for every $250 coin in, up to 5, where you pick 3 numbers. And should you happen to be drawn and pick the right 3 numbers that are there, $5,000 first prize. On Fridays, they have a hot seat drawings at 4, 6, 8, and 10 in the evenings, and they're giving away $18,000. So to those winners, it takes $250 coin in during the day to be to get entered into the hot seat drawings, and they continue their comp buffet program. For a relatively modest amount of play, you get a free buffet, and it's one of the better buffets in town. So, and you keep the points. So, for example, the Friday seafood is $34 retail. It'll take 1,700 video poker points. So this is very much like a 2% comp. So it's a good deal. Very good.
Now, Were you done with that?
I was done with that.
I understand. We've been talking for weeks now about this promotion at the Palms, where you have the choice of either taking a sure 1,500 or mixing up the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 into a 4-digit number, and you got called for the drawing.
I did. It was a little bit different than what we had anticipated. It isn't like the 4 numbers are in a stack and you can put them wherever you want. The 4 numbers are up on the board. They'll put them up there in the order they want, and then you get up to 3 changes. So you can change the first and the second one, or you could change the second and the fourth one. You can make up to 3 changes. So when I got selected, there were 5 people selected that night, and including me, of the people who decided to gamble up, there was one of us. Everybody else, so far, everybody has gotten less than the 1,500, and so they go, well, if nobody can get more than 1,500, I'm not even going to try. I'm going to take the guaranteed 1,500. So I'm going, nonsense. So before I started switching, one of my buddies came up to me and he says, the last 4 times somebody's decided to gamble up, there has been a 3 in the first position, meaning that you get at least $3,000 if you leave the first one where it is. So now this could happen by chance. This could happen because whoever is putting those up there thinks this is a clever way to do it. And they're going to and so whenever switch a player is going to make is going to mess him up. And so that's a possibility that that's happening. With 4 events, you just don't really know, but I figured, why don't I just stay with what's up there? So I did, and they kind of looked at me as surprised, and they undid it, and I didn't get the top prize. The top prize would be $3,210. I only got $3,201. So which was an excellent result. And so I was quite pleased with that, and the guy who gave me the information, had his hand out, wanted his $1,000 cut. And anyway, he didn't get it. The next night, the guy who gave me the information was drawn. I wasn't drawn. And so he decides to gamble it up. So now he's talking about, well, if it was always a 3 in the first position until somebody figured it out, what do we think is going to happen now? Should we change it or should we not change it? And I'm just going, well, I would stand pat, but I don't know. It's your money. And so, but if it was up to me, I would stand pat.
I agree with you. I would stand. I just can't think that the guys up there are that diabolical to be thinking, maybe the players know that we're doing this, so we should switch it over to the last position.
I don't know what the process is, and so they turn over the numbers from the end, from the lowest. So the first number they turned over was a 3, which is the worst number. You want a 0 to be turned over there, so they have the 3 later. So that means he can no longer get the $3,000. So that was no good. Then he turned over 0, which is good. You want the zeros out of the way early. So now he's either going to get 2,100 or 1,200, and it ended up getting 1,200. So it was slightly worse than the 1,500, but they didn't change the result. But he so far I've been the only one to get more than 1,500. I still recommend it. I'm not going to be in the drawing this week. I'm doing something else this Friday and Saturday. If you are in that drawing, I recommend you gamble it up and go for it. Whether or not you stand pat or not, you can work that out by yourself, because I surely don't know.
All right. Now, speaking of drawings, we had an email question.
We did, and I have lots of thoughts on that. But before we do that, first, let's talk about our guest next week, so we make sure we have time, and then I'm going to fill out. So we had a lawyer on a few weeks ago named Bob Nersessian, and it was one of our most popular lawyers. He comes into the studio, and he's quite passionate about what he does.
Yes, he liked to jump in right before we even introduced him. He had opinions about things.
He could talk almost as much as Steve Cyr. He was good. Anyway, he's coming back.
So his name is Bob Nersessian, and he is the lawyer for players. When you have money confiscated or you get roughed up in the back room, he's the man you want to call.
Yeah, it was in the papers recently. Apparently, some guy has his account at M Casino Sportsbook, and so he allowed a couple of his friends to make bets on the sports, and so the casino allowed them to withdraw money, which was not part of the deal. And
yeah,
so
$180,000 worth.
Yeah, so somehow, anyway, Mr. Necessian's involved in that, so I suspect we'll ask him about that. I hope he chooses to talk to us about that.
Yep. He had another case in the paper, too, where a couple coming back from Puerto Rico, I think it was, had money confiscated by the DEA, even though they had receipts from the casino showing that the money had come from the casino. And a ruling was overturned, lower court. Basically, they wanted to sue the DEA agents here in Nevada. And initially, they said, no, you can't sue here, but now that's been overturned, so they can sue here.
So they can sue here, so the suit's in process.
Right.
And so likely, if it's in progress, it'll be settled. Is my guess, because they can't win. So about drawings, people wanted to. Casino drawings are a big part of how players earn money, how players survive. In my personal video poker career, I've been playing since '94, and every year's been positive, with the exception of 2009. If you don't include casino drawings, then I've had like 8 losing years. So it's like casino drawings are a key part. So this year I'm expecting about 100,000 to come from drawings. This is not a trivial, to me that's not a trivial amount. So people want to know how many tickets are in the drum. How do you estimate that? Because that would help you figure out, do you add 0.2 for the drawings, or 0.4 or 0.6 or whatever. And so one thing is, I got 2 minutes, so we're not going to cover all this. We'll talk about some of it next week. One thing is, it's always a guess. A key part of this guess is, at any given casino, the drawings this time have similar number of entries as the same drawing they did last time. So if you get used to playing at the Palms, for example, and you kind of know that if you play $300,000 coin in that week, you get called every other time, well, that's a good predictor. If you get each casino has a different kind of rate, so you find out by asking the other players, how much did you play, did you get called or not? Now, you're not just asking the winners, you're also asking the other people around you. Now, if you have friends in this business, other players, a lot of them will tell you how much they played. Some will say it's none of your damn business. Others will tell you, but it's useful information. There are other kinds of casinos where they don't do this. For example, most of the coast casinos, the tickets start going into the drum at the first of the month, and they stay in there until the end of the month. So the number of entries in the barrel in the first drawing of the month is a whole lot less than it is at the end of the month. So if you know you're going to play $62,000, some such number, it can, in those casinos, it might be a smarter bet to play the first week of the month and get it all out of the way and give it your best shot, because now you're in the drum with the least competition. You may not win, but that's a better chance than you have doing that same amount of play at the end of the month. How much it is can vary depending on double point days and stuff. All right, so we got 10 seconds. I hope all of you hit lots of royal flushes over the year. Thanks for Steve Cyr, Richard Munchkin. Thank you very much.
Good night.
You've been listening to Gambling with an Edge with your hosts Bob Dancer and Richard W. Munchkin. Archived versions of past shows may be found on bobdancer.com and richardmunchkin.com. We welcome emails at gamblingwithanedge@gmail.com. Bob Dancer and Richard W. Munchkin are both on Facebook and welcome your input or questions. The sponsors for the show are the South Point Hotel, Casino and Spa, the M Resort, the Palms Casino Resort, and the website videopoker.com. Join us again next week for another Gambling with an Edge.